Hey guys, Master Xeon here, and in this video, I'm just going to be going over just random stuff, just a couple of things about my workflow and asset management, just random stuff, not even a tutorial specifically. And just starting a little music for myself. So whenever I build scenes, I deal with a lot of different stuff. Like right here, I've been just working on just random wings. I saw a picture for an upcoming video on Blender Cookie and was like, I should try making some wings. The pictures he showed also showed the rigging setup, so I was like, that looks like something I could emulate. May not even have to watch the video, but Kent Trammell's a genius. But this is an asset and it's its own blend file. And by pressing Control C, I can copy the file. I can copy this object. And, I actually keep everything fairly organized because I used to have hundreds of blend files of just random objects, and looking for things was starting to get just really ridiculous. So I began to work on these asset massives. And basically what it is a blend file that has just everything in one file. So here I'm going to go ahead and just add this wing to the collection and show you all how it's done. First I remove all modifiers, make sure there's no materials, and I move it to whichever layer. So this is layer 1. And I just take this wing and add it to the collection. And so I just have all these assets just stacked up, and I just keep them in a line. I call it item world. I don't know if you ever played Disgaea, but on that game you can go inside your weapons and fight to make them even stronger against like strange enemies that are incredibly powerful. But it's like the most eternal game ever. You can go all the way to level 9,999 on everything almost. But, back to Blender. So this is just one of my asset massives. And this file is actually 55 megs. Usually I set the limit to be about 30 and then I break them. And also keep a lot of backups of them because Blender recently was talking about some things with older builds becoming, making bad blend files. And I would just hate to lose all of my stuff because I consolidate it. So I actually keep quite a few different files. And then on top of that, I also keep them in my Dropbox online. And I got all sorts of random assets. Like, for example, right here, this is just a scene of cave rocks. That's all it is. This one's not even organized. It was just part of another scene. I just cut them and put it here. And these are just, random rocks. In fact, if I render it out, it'll actually look horrible because there is no textures. So I actually broke the links making this file, so I'll have to retexture that. But, it just projects some rocks. Do a good enough job. But I also have, mech parts. This is just a scene built up of nothing but alright, so this one's actually a little out of order, so I'm going to straighten it out and just coot this object over here, resave the file. And this file actually has a couple of rules broken. This actually looks like it has a subserve. But, these are all just mech parts in case I wanted to just build a random sci-fi scene. And in fact, here's a bolt neck wing from the tutorial on texture painting I did a while back. Here's the ball that was in the background, just random props. And all of it's untextured, so I just would create it and make a new file just that way. This one was just a corridor I was working on, just a random like sci-fi platform. But all these files, I try to keep them in an organized way where I can eventually come and use these assets, but also have more organized ones. In fact, I even have the Clive rig from the Blender Cookie animation series because I thought the panel was so interesting. Let's see, this one's just the helmet. So if I just need a helmet to throw in a scene, I would just go right there. This one's just a bunch of doodads for whatever purposes. And most of these aren't UV unwrapped, but UV unwrapping isn't that bad. Trying to find... Maybe I'm not organized as I say I am. Alright. This one's actually just trees. And it's actually 197.4 megs. This is a pretty useful file. So whenever it comes to trees, the more realistic your tree gets, the more your computer is going to break down and cry and fall apart. I'm loading this still, but you know, there are a couple of ways that you can get multiple trees in your scene that look good and come out into render and won't kill your computer. So, this is one of the great Blender tips that I've never really put a lot of thought into until I began practically using it. So if I duplicate this tree, um, frozen. So yeah, Blender is choking on this tree, choking on a tree. That's how Blender goes in the end. But don't get me wrong, still have 2.67, and it's a very dense mesh. I mean, you look at my vertex count, I'm looking at 1,847,492, and just this object alone, I think, is that. So if I wanted to, deal with this in a way that did not kill the computer, you can change this to be bounding box. You can also change this to also be a bounding box. And that's the first thing. The next thing is duplicating it. So you can Shift D duplicate it. Maybe not the best idea, because each duplicate that you make using Shift D is its own object and won't actually take advantage of the dupliverts function or the duplication system that Blender has. So by using Shift D, here I used, not Shift D, here I actually use Shift D. Right here, if I Alt D, I create a link duplicate that is more computationally friendly onto render. And by doing this, I'm able to put way more trees in a scene than usual. As you can see, I'm struggling with just this one. God, this thing really is struggling with this. I might end up having to make this video a time lapse over the lagging, but this was just another example of me trying to demonstrate these assets. So I'll just put this one over here. And if I just go to render mode, hopefully I actually did a decent texturing job. It's taking a long time to jump over cycles. That scares me. Alright, so we're gonna, start up the task manager and locate Blender, which is definitely going to be the one taking up the most memory, but instead Blender will decide to work. But as you can see, I'm still able to render and have multiple trees, and I can, adjust the scales on a global scale to make them different and rotate them. But the thing is that using Alt D will make this sort of thing possible, while Shift D will make it a lot harder for you. So that is something that you want to keep in mind. And so back to the original goal, just discussing assets. So I also have, my architectural assets. This one is actually an entire alley scene that I made, where I believe a car was going through, but in the actual animation, it's just horrible. I mean, up here I actually just made some proxy crows. And one day I decided to camp out and really get down on buildings and what, sits on top of these things. And, it's just random stuff. So I think putting all that there really added to it, but this one isn't the full scene. Let's see, there should be more to it. And here's like another object, just a high-rise apartment I found out I still had from when I followed Andrew Price's tour a long time ago. And, looking at it in the render, it's really not that bad. It's a pretty nice building. But that was from a tutorial he did a long time ago that I followed when I first was getting serious with Blender. I mean, here's a kitchen. So by keeping these scenes well organized, I'm able to, kitbash an entire animation pretty quick. So that's what I want to show an example of. And, most of this stuff is just unfinished stuff, I decided, maybe I should keep this file because I made a pillow I like. But I do plan on eventually consolidating everything down into being a much tighter set of assets that allows me to pick and choose. But, some of these, since they're pre-compiled, it's just good to start from there. I mean, here's just an old church scene I've been working on. And, continuing on. But I mean, organizing your assets like this has a lot of uses. For example, if I just open up Asset Massive Trace, this one is another collection of random stuff. I got a piano in here, a ray gun, a dragon that I made for somebody. This old school frog that I like. Clop is actually a 3D game on the internet that's incredibly hard to play. It's spelled C-L-O-P. You should play it, but I made this ode to him. It's impossible to beat, but long live Clop, I got a chicken head. What do I need a chicken head for? I got a bass, a mailbox, a fan, next to a Phantasy Star Online 2 style sword, next to an axe, next to a machine gun. And continuing on, I got this weird chair, street lights, even a mechanized bear. And all this stuff is pretty much subsurf ready because it's been simplified to be thrown in here. I could have left it with its original subdivs and just use simplify on the whole scene, be able to keep everything pretty original. If I go to this one's the same file except the other one I think is older. This one is more random stuff. And that one is the original Asset Massive. So usually whenever I just am modeling a building, I'll just come over here, just grab a random person, Control C, drop them in there. Another useful thing that, you may not know is you can right-click Blender on Windows 7 and click it again, and it'll open a new instance, allowing you to copy and paste from one Blender version from one instance of Blender into another. And for a while, I didn't actually know that. So, if you already know that, congratulations. And, sci-fi assets, I got just this robot hand that I used on the girl tutorial that I did previously. Here's just a random sci-fi gun that's already part of a massive. But I'm just, giving you all a little insight in just the way that my files are. But as you can see, it's still a bit of a mess. But even before that, these are still just open projects that are being worked on. Not to mention all the OBJs of things that I've made in other applications that I haven't brought in. So, Blender actually has a lot of use when it comes to its export functions and the way that that's handled. Let me turn down the music a little bit before I begin the second part. Alright, so, Zbrush, I know, this is a Blender video, but, having all your assets organized in the way that I have them in Blender, like you see here, is actually pretty useful for other reasons too. Like for example, in ZBrush, you can use every asset as a brush. So let's say that I went into this asset massive file here, took each of these objects, selected them, chose export obj, and went to my obj directory, and we call this random tut obj. That way I know to come back and delete this useless file later. But for demonstration purposes, it does have a use. And I'm going to check objects as obj objects. If you set up groups in your blend file, like for the regions of the face, you can actually use the polygroups. But if you did weight painting in your rigging, don't use polygroups. You're going to end up with a bunch of different separated objects, and merging things in ZBrush is kind of weird. So, include whatever, just selection only. You always want to do selection only. But objects is obj object. So I export obj, and that's done. So I go back over to this ram-eating monster. I haven't even been doing anything over here, and it's already freezing. What the hell is wrong with my computer? Did I even open the right program? Yeah. Alright, maybe it's quick saving. So there's a couple of things about ZBrush that does annoy me. In ZBrush R5, they added the quick save feature, which drives me crazy because it saves files, and then if you don't go under preferences, undo history, and choose enable saving to be off, it will actually save your undo history, and if you're far along in the sculpt, it will take forever. So you'll see me make these ZBrush animations like this one here, where basically I call it an undo history because it's me going all the way from a cube all the way to finished result. But you know, here's a example of one in case you've never seen it, but I'm sure everyone has. But yes, this is an undo history video, and basically it records all your strokes and it shows them up here at the top of the screen. And you can just drag this around and actually take your model back through time all the way back to the initial stages. And then under movie, you have the option to either record backward history, which will play it all the way from here back to a sphere, which is dumb. You don't want to watch a model be unmade because it is a perpetual process of refinement, I guess is the reason I thought of. But if I go all the way back to, you know, here, 1081, and I just scrub through, you can see my undo history of just me going through the files. So if I just, I'm not going to put it all the way at the beginning because it actually takes a long time. But if I just choose to make this only the dock, I don't want to show my interface because it doesn't even show what options I've selected. It just shows it sitting there being useless. I can choose between large, medium, small. I just leave it at medium, but for the most part you want to turn off opacity unless you have your own overlay image you want to be there. You also want to turn off this unless you want ZBrush's intro, which I don't care for, but sometimes it cuts into the animation. And then if I just choose forward history, it will actually just make this quick video of the changes I made to it. So, criticism aside, this is my recent attempt at a scold of just, you know, goofing around, trying not to use reference, and it still is a work in progress, so this by no means has nothing to do with the video, but I just wanted to show this process real quick. And so let's pretend that that finished. And you wanted to export this humongously long movie, because as you'll find, the longer you work on these undo histories, the longer it takes to make them, and the fact that it freezes. Alright, quick saving's trying to take effect. QuickTime needs to piss off. So, where was I? So under movie, if you choose export movie, you can choose to export this. I'll just call this crap. And another window will come up, and voila, you get to watch your video of your performance being exported. So whoever was asking about that in the comments, there you go. But I found out through a Ryan Kingsley video that he did. So back to the initial thing. So the assets. So I exported them as an OBJ, and I'm just using ZBrush. So what would I do with them? Well, one thing is I could use them as objects, but ZBrush has been able to do that for ages. And Blender is getting pretty damn good at sculpting. So, you know, why do I need this program in the first place? Is the next question, right? So I'm just gonna bring everything in here, and voila, everything is not separated. What the hell? So under polygroups, I'll just choose auto groups. Auto groups will let me down and ultimately frustrate me. So with that, I'm actually going to have to go in here and manually assign these polygroups, but I make it sound like it's a lot of work, but it's really not that bad. So I could just go in here with the mask lasso. And so now I'm on my Intuos because using a tablet is just the bee's knees. And I'm just going to trace every object, and you can press Control W, but I actually remapped some of ZBrush's functions to be like Blender hotkeys. So for me, it's Control G. But you just basically use the mask lasso and select each object and just make each of them part of the same group, because the groups is how you get the power out of the brushes. And these people don't even have eyes, so that is unfortunate. This is actually a pretty nice head, but I think this one up here is more realistic. This head will always be an asset. Alright, what the hell is this? Alright, so we'll just Control G that, make all of these their own group. And for all the work that I'm having to go through for this, I'm going to have to make a final a final result using each of these assets. So I am no ZBrush master. That's why I don't make ZBrush videos. There are some people out there who have taught me a lot, who make me look like a dunce. But I practice every day, give it many, many hours, and eventually I will be where I want to be. This thing here, actually I want to use the select lasso. And remove that. And over here, if I choose geometry, modify topology, delete hidden, it's gone forever. So, like our latest political scandal, Benghazi, it's just swept under the carpet. But, you know, this is a Blender ZBrush asset tutorial. Like I said, this is a random video. I'm not even talking about anything in particular. But, alright, so everything's separated out in this group. And now what I want to do is, let's see, under subtool and split, I have group split. That will make each of these objects their own group now, so that's that. And the next thing is, if I go under brush, choose, actually, I'm going to have to actually group these all back together, or am I? Let's see, insert, multi-mesh. And now I've made this brush into a multi-mesh brush. So all of these objects I can just spawn, right? So I go over here to sphere. Horrible poles. Horrible poles. It's like looking at a sphincter. But, you know, in ZBrush, topology is nothing. I mean, obviously, they don't care about it. That's why they just let you not touch vertices ever. You can't touch vertices. You can mess with edges, you can mess with faces. But in ZBrush, you know, you're sculpting, so you're not messing with that anyways. But, you know, if it had a vertice edit mode that was not that Z-sphere draw thing, that would actually be pretty great. So, you know, this program this video, like I said, isn't about ZBrush, just messing around, showing y'all a little bit about how it works. So, we'll just make something random. Turn off polyframe with Shift F. Change this to a clip curve. And so, you know, whenever it comes to ZBrush versus Blender, there's a couple of reasons why I use ZBrush. ZBrush is easy. If you want an easy time sculpting, you'll use ZBrush. If you want to master the open source way, then you'll use Blender. But Blender has its advantages, and ZBrush has many advantages, and its weaknesses are failures of strengths that they've tried to emphasize. So it's like they've made their own disasters in ZBrush. So, you know, sculpting, that's nothing fancy. Let's mess with that brush that I made. So I got this insert mesh. If I press M, I can just spawn this object. And because of some issues with the way that I set their orientation unintelligently, They will not orient correctly when I insert them unless I mess with their embed value and their orientation. It's just easier to not get into that. So I'll move this here, hold down Control, duplicate it, move it there, hold Control, duplicate, move it there. And so, whenever it comes to the creation process of using Zbrush, that's the reason that I come and use it, is that I can make what I want really easy. I mean, maybe this once, the match mover brush will work. And it doesn't. Maybe Z-Project. Z-Project is classic, that used to work. Nope, that neither. So, I won't dynamesh it yet. So, dynameshing will remove all the detail that I have, but it will give me a unified mesh that I can convert to an OBJ and bring back into Blender. So when you look at things in that aspect, me being a obsessant retopo person or retopoed mesh that's already been retopoed, don't mind having to do it, but I really prefer my creation process to be as quick as possible. So I'm also working on the same way in Blender. I can do the same thing, but right now you're just watching me do it in ZBrush just to show how that can be done. So we'll put some glasses on it, make him look like a father. And we'll press M and bring this up again. We'll go with this particular head. And with the transpose lines, just, move this thing. Transpose, I used to hate it, now I understand it. And transpose, I've come to a truce. Alright, so this is a freaky creature. And a failure. But, we will keep adding to it until it looks less regrettable. So, what does this thing need? It needs a tentacle. And what does these hands need? Well, they need a gun. Alright, so this is the new logo for the NRA. But, when I remesh this sucker, it may crash. And this is what it'll look like. But it's a unified mesh. Everything's stuck together. I could decimate the hell out of it and get this thing back into Blender. But if we look at its geometry, that is a catastrophe. But it gets the job done. And it's unified. I could hit Control D and just come in here and continue modifying it. And, just, make this man have a kitty face if I want to. Press L to turn off the lazy brush. Alright, so the NRA has sent me a message. They rejected my logo. But whatever. So we'll just, actually, we could just drag our undo history back to the beginning. We could make a video of this happening while we want to do that. But we can go here, and I can show you all my other brushes. So I've made a lot of brushes in ZBrush. Like I said, I love this program. I just hate some of the changes they've made to it. They make some great improvements, but then it just makes my computer so damn slow. Stop it. Alright, so on this one, I have quite a few objects here, but I mean, I could come into ZBrush pretty easily. And while I prefer to do all this manually every single time, because I'm insane and I'm trying to ensure absolute 100% mastery of the human face before I start using my pre-built stuff, I don't know. I always practice 3D like I plan to do it on television. So, you know, dropping them out, like Simeon, smooth it all out. B, M, N. These are, as you can see, they're called MX Massive because they're from the massive file, but I could do a myriad of things to just start building a sculpt out of nothing. And the best part is I don't have to worry about geometry. I don't have to take forever doing it. I can just throw something together, reject it, be done with it, hate it in like 15 minutes. So, you know, that's enough ZBrush. So in Blender, I'm just going to right click Blender, open another instance. And this one will be our workhorse. This one will be the blend file that we'll go in and just grab assets out of. And we're just going to build a quick, we're going to build just a quick environment. I'm no environment modeler, but why not? Let's just give it a shot. So first I'll look at what assets I have here. That house will never fit in any scene that I make. Alright, so I could start with this downtown scene, but that would be cheating. In fact, end of the video, I have a city. Alright, so there's a tree actually by itself. Or you know, here we go. Perfect. So we're going to build an environment, and the first file we'll begin referencing from is this one. We'll just use Control C and Control V. Now notice that everything's on the second layer, so if I use Control C and paste it in my other instance, after deleting all that, I found that there's a shortcut for this, and it's Shift Alt C. That is fantastic. I'm telling you, Blender gets better and better. In fact, I was reading about something Jonathan Williamson posted today about using the middle mouse wheel to grow your selection instead of using Control Plus, which I don't mind, but yeah, the middle mouse wheel is also a pretty good idea, but I couldn't figure it out in the key map. Maybe we should make a video about that. Alright, so my asset didn't copy over. Let's try that again. We'll go over here, Control C, go over here, Control V, and here it is. So everything's going to be on layer 2 because I annoyingly built the file that way. But first thing we'll do is just, you know, put this level in the scene. And we might as well copy that and lower this to 2. Change that. And change this to be 1. And here we have the, you know, the middle of our street. This is going to be like just a random sci-fi scene. You know, these two objects, they'll be next. And this video is overdue. You know, I made this sci-fi scene a long time ago. I'm way overdue to use my new enhanced modeling techniques to make more stuff. I say enhanced because, you know, in between all of my old videos, I probably put in way too much time into studying, you know, the art of modeling and just 3D. I feel that maybe I can master it if I just outlive it or, you know, learn everything. So just put in arrays, you know, these will be like some watchtowers. And you know, I could be modeling all this crap, but the thing is that you already know how to model this crap. If not, I'll make you a video on how to model this crap, but I'll take your word for it. So snapping, I was talking to someone about it in the forum. Snapping is this magnet, and you can change it to vertex. And if you have the magnet on, then automatically when you grab stuff, it'll be snapping it, which is kind of annoying. So I turned it off. That way I can use control and snap it, get my cursor where I want, and then snap it there. So, you know, that's pretty groovy. And we'll just snap this here. There's like no depth to this thing or thickness, so, you know, since this is not linked, I can just do whatever I want. So we'll select these two verts. So the goal of building this whole thing was to be low poly because it was intended to be duplicated and textured on a massive scale. So alright, so now we'll just duplicate this away. This probably looks like some like train tracks, you know. Maybe that's what I did. So we'll duplicate this on the Y, then hold G, press Y to constrain it, and we'll just snap it here by pressing Control instead of having it, you know, be annoying and do it whenever it wants. You know, half the road. Don't need that. Another useful thing is I could have just used this version, which I actually have the official build, then the latest build from the build bot on hand, so that way if one's freezing or being weird, I could just try it out. This thing's useful. So we'll go here and drop that in. And we'll jump between a couple of different files and just kitbash it. And this is actually based off of something I've seen in Moto recently where they were building a space scene, just putting parts together. And it's really, watching other videos on the way they do things in other programs, it's really opened my eyes not only to how much Blender has to go, but still as well, just how the professionals look at assets and the way they manage things with a cold ferocity. So we'll just put this here because we don't want our speed train hitting it. And this is another thing that only has one edge. In fact, I'll just drag that down. The important thing about snapping is you want things to be airtight. You don't want your model having cracks of air or showing weird things that you don't want to be showing, like, you know, your HDRI maps. So as you can see, you can just use this method to start, you know, building stuff pretty fast. It really just depends on the constraints of your imagination. But, you know, everything's arrayed, and arrays are cool, but arrays will make you look like a loser if you don't add a little variety in there. So, you know, we're going to need to make a couple of changes here. I'll just select that edge, remove it, remove the array, and I can do this the lazy way, which is extrude this all the way to the mirror. And then merge these two faces. And if I press Alt F, they made some improvements to the Beautify fill that makes it actually fill it more intelligently. Something useful to keep in mind. Alt F. And Alt F, you know, I could have done it with quads, but, you know, that could also take like 5 minutes. Time is money. This is a tutorial. No one will notice and no one will call me out on it because I won't be showing wires. And even so, the goal is to be quick and efficient. So this thing has to go down a ways. This thing also has to go down a ways. And this thing, alright, so this and this, we will Alt L, which does nothing. We will Control L and link the object data. That didn't help it. And here's our scene so far. So I mean, if I rendered it out, it'd start looking alright, but alright is only half good enough. So, more adding. So what else can we add here? This looks like It has potential along with this and this. So we'll Control C copy, come over here, Control C paste, Control V paste, and in Blender, my good friend Control M, and the axis is not back. So to mirror it, I'll just RZ180, and first I will snap it here, pull it down a ways, G, Y, X, to actually go to X. We'll snap it here. I will come right here, select this vert, put my cursor there. Damn, these are some big ass numbers. Alright, so let's reduce that to like 75 and extend this out. So this thing is an array. So we apply the mirror, apply the array, apply the mirror, apply the array. Control J, join them. Control Alt C, origin to 3D cursor. And we will -1. And just move these down. So we're going to need some other elements. That's kind of heavy, don't you think? So back over to this scene. And let's see, what else can we use? This thing's cool. And this thing looks like it has a purpose, and that looks like it could also have a purpose. So we'll go over here, Control V, drop our buddies in here. This thing will serve as the bridge between these two. So as you can see, by this point I probably need to bring in a man for scale, but for tutorial purposes I won't. Alright, we'll just connect that. So that looks like it could work out. We have our character running along that, train coming down that. You know, I can dream. So we'll take this asset, snap it here. I said snap here. No, not there. Here. Nope. So close. Alright. Now we will extrude this on the Y, flatten it on the Y, and put our cursor here. Press period to change our rotation point to be the 3D cursor, and our X. And this last vert at the top, after pressing comma to reset that, let's move that over. And we'll snap this here. Maybe it'll listen. No. Alright, so we want to extrude this on the Y. Want to flatten it on the Y. And this part we'll bring down till it meets that edge. We'll merge those. And Control M X still doesn't work. If we go in edit mode, I can press SX negative 1 and reverse it and connect it to fit. And we're just creating, something more interesting, because since all of this stuff will be ultimately, just passed by really fast, we just want something to not bore the viewer. E, Y, alright, now we fill that, go over here to this end, E, Y, stick to there. And so as you can see, snapping is pretty good for precision modeling. I mean, you could use edges as measuring tape if you're using Blender, right? I think that was another forum question I saw one day about how would you measure in space, because the measure tool is it's useful, but where's that stretching to? Well, I guess it really is measuring all the way out there, or is it? But who knows? And so here we go. We have level 1, but we want this to turn into a sidewalk or something, because right now it's kind of abrupt. So, damn it, why do I keep opening that folder? Alright, so I'm trying not to recycle the same stuff too much. But this stuff is so complex that if it was repeated, it would be... You know what? Let's just go to the next file. So, we have outside. Outside only has a bench and a tree, and a dead looking tree at that. This one's just a study I did on 2 curves. I just saved this file as something. Oh my god, I just overwrote a file. Alright, so, this is part of why you gotta organize things well. So this one is just low poly stuff I've made. Starting with a low poly waterfall to like some little cottage. But the more low poly I see, the more I hate this stuff. So I quit making it, but I keep the assets. I even got a bird here. I even got these houses with oversized poles, which we will use. So we'll go over to our file that we're building, and on layer 1 has a file that we need to move to layer 2. RZ90, Shift R to repeat that. We will snap it here. We will put the cursor here and press period to put the cursor here and scale it on the cursor so it stays here but scales up. And we'll just get this to be an adequate size for houses. Those are humongous houses. Alright. Now, at this point, a man would be essential. So we'll open another instance of Blender. Open. I like using this one. He's a little less dense and more relaxed looking than that one. We'll close that instance of Blender and paste this guy in. Here he is, moving to layer 2. And so since this bridge is kind of the main thing of this picture, we'll put him up against it. Let's see, GZ, snap him here. Alright, so that's about the proper height for the scene. And if we duplicate him and put him GZ, bring him higher, then GZ, snap him here. We'll rotate him and place him here so we also have another sense of scale. D, we'll place him on the porch so we can see that our houses are too small. And these are hideous houses. This is definitely going to have to go. In fact, I don't even know why I'm adjusting it. But, you know, we could actually pull this back and that will just be part of the neighborhood in the distance. No, what a weird house. Like I said, these models have came from different times of me studying Blender, so some of them are, you know, pretty good. Like, you know, this is one of my favorites. So we'll go here. This one has this building. It actually looks very nice. I will remove every texture from this object just to keep it fair, because everything else is going to be untextured. We're just going to make a, you know, gray render at the end. Plus, I need to test some things with my CPU, meaning with my GPU. Cycles actually told me the other day that it did not have enough memory. I was horrified. I was rendering macaroni, for Christ's sakes. Alright, so he's been lost into the building. So we'll pull him back. And they're all the same scale. Definitely don't want to alter that scale. But this building needs to become much larger. And having something so large just kind of changes everything about the scene. So maybe scale it down. You know, maybe it's a building for little people. Alright, we'll take this face at the very front. And since this 3D cursor is already here, if we just press E, cancel, GY0, SY0, it will actually put it right on the money. And so we'll just add an array to this. And we realize that this side of the porch needs to come out. And conveniently, may just all be one plane, but nope, knowing me, I have a loop cut over here, and I don't. Alright, we'll pull that out until these things actually connect here, and we'll change this to be a negative number, and just put 3. You know, if I just use the same building everywhere, the whole job would be done. Too easy. Actually, 2 buildings looks alright, 3 buildings is kind of obvious. So, sorry, you're an obvious building, you're going to have to go down that way some. So this building, what does it look like? That's what it looks like. So I want to take this building, just use my control lasso select, put it in local mode, and we'll just remove stuff we don't want. This and this are some added bonuses for taking this thing, so that will definitely come in handy. We'll get rid of the birds too. It's like shooting birds. Alright, so we'll take, nope, we don't need the blend logo this time. Another day, Blenderman. Alright, so we'll drop this in GZ RZ90, rotate it again, and the Blender logo is going to come in the end after all. Alright, and this is more of a building for hair. So, and it's also a building more for the back. So we'll just pull this one to the back. These things look like they would fit right at home on top of this to just add to it. So we'll go to the very first one. Bring it up, GZ, snap it down. And keep in mind every time I'm snapping, I just hold control. So I made two mistakes. I forgot to apply to array. I forgot to apply to mirror. And also should put my mistake. So, just making it look like, they might belong. Are all of these edges connected? No, they're not. So we will move doubles. Are all these edges connected? Answer is yes. And we will take a cop out. So cop out is just me snapping here. Alright, so GX, snap it here. Alright, so we have quite a, environment coming along here. Except for, I'm going to need to borrow this to make more floor. So we'll just select those after duplicating them, and then press P to separate it. GX, snap it here, and just pull that back. And, we'll pull it all the way here. And so, this is a fence to separate people, like the real world. Alright. Oh yeah, forget that Control M does not do the mirror right now. RZ90. Do it again. And defense will add a little visual interest to it. Plus, in my dream, I want the world to be like the real world, where the police are beating everybody to death, like it says all over the news every time I look at it. So we'll just save this as, I'll just create a new one, call this tut asset, and this will be just random town tutorial. And so, we have a scene that's coming along. I mean, we could render it here, call it a day, or we can go a little bit further. So, behind these buildings even more, we need more buildings. So we'll go to Future City. Future City was one where I just built a bunch of random buildings and put deformers on them. Like, most of these are simple to form, so it's nothing. You just, upstairs, you just build this little structure, array it, and then just use the simple to form. So where do these go? Everything seems to go to layer 1 today. So these buildings will be way out in the distance. Except for this one. The pyramid building is where they take people to put machines in their brains. But I should organize the camera so I have a snap to location. Alright, so from here, I want to put my camera. I've been really judging movies lately. In fact, I watched a movie yesterday called Battle for New York Day 2. Let me tell you, worst movie ever made. That was why I watched it. But nothing will show you how to do decent photography than watching a bunch of really good films by good directors and watching bad films by idiot directors that deserve to be shot. So, we'll make this one. I'll close that. That's Pandora's box. Or where you find out everything that you're doing in Blender in Python talk. Really, I mean, that is exactly what this is. It's the most useful box ever once I realized what it was doing during my time working on the Leap. I want them big. Like that. We'll just put them here because, the camera's not going to explore the whole scene. This is what the camera's going to explore, what we show it. So, I could be going on this all day. I could jump through hundreds of files, grabbing stuff, and just go on this seriously all day. So instead, we're going to change it over to cycles, and we're going to create we're going to remove all these materials, and these materials, delete that again. Alright, and an easy way to texture a whole scene is to just add we'll just make it light gray and we'll call it boring, because this will be a boring material. And under render layers, you can set it to be boring and it'll override everything. And so if you're in rendered mode and you hit render layer, every element will be shaded boring. Okay, so I know I'm not using my GPU, and that's with good reason, because I haven't got over here yet. I love watching it on the CPU for a split moment and then switching it to GPU and watching this baby grind like it's a baby on fire. But GPU is definitely where it's at when it comes to cycles rendering. But I don't know if I told you all the story about how I had to Dremel my computer to get it to fit. So raise the focal length to be something a little more inviting to all the elements that we've added. Sometimes this option hides. Yeah, sorry about the baby on fire joke. I have nothing against babies. I just feel the freedom of speech is under attack, so it makes me talk harsher. And so here's our view of the scene so far. Lighting is bad, everything's gray. There's not a lot we can do there. We can drop in a sunlight. And that will add a little bit of light. However, I think the shadows it's making are a little hard, so we'll just set that to be like 0.3. And we'll shrink the window that it renders in so that way it's faster. And so here we go so far. So it's definitely looking better, but we need to HDRI light the scene. That'll give us some more natural colors. When it comes to my image-based lighting textures, I get them from everywhere. Even from people in trench coats and back alleys who won't reveal their faces, that only want me to bring a suitcase full of money. So, you know, all these I get from random places, but my favorite ones are the ones I get from Blender Cookie, because they have this one. And it kills the scene, no detail, even for 25 samples. But if I check multiple important sample, raise the resolution to 512, maybe lower the strength to be 0.5. And you know, that may not be the best HDRI for this. So we'll go to Tunnel. That's another one you can get off of blendercookie.com. So I mean, you don't even have to torrent them. And this one gives it more of a kind of nighttime shading, I guess. Alright, so main thing is that the HDRI is showing. So if we go into the node editor and go to use nodes, go over to environment, we will duplicate this and change the shader to a mix shader, or just interject one, and bring that in, use a input light path. And with the light path node, we'll put the is shadow ray in to modulate it. And that will, wait, sorry, silly me, is camera ray. I was thinking there was something wrong, because usually I don't have to flip those two around. So everything is shaded with boring, and boy is it boring. Why is it so boring? Maybe I should make this texture a little brighter. And then the next thing is, yes, so the sky looks bad. So I can just go in texture and bring in a sky texture. Except that's really bright for the city to look so dull and dark. Good thing about the node editor now is you have the power of RGB curves. which is my favorite thing to do. I curve everything. And we'll just pull these down, play with this. Usually I try to bring out some oranges on the edging. And I just, take away the green, give it more green, realize that the green is okay the way it is and shouldn't be judged. Not a blue, however. Usually I like to bring in a little bit more blue, but on the overall, just try to bring it down a little bit. Never play with the turbidity, but it's interesting how it's changing so much. So we'll stick with this as our lighting scheme. A couple of things I noticed is in the background there's a lot of fireflies. I could jump this up to 60 and, fireflies will either prevail or get out of my scene. The other thing is this kid here, Care001, he has been chosen as today's camera focus. So if I just put that on Care001 and just change this to just 0.2, everything's out of focus except for him. I hope. Alright, so I can't quite put my finger on what it is that's wrong. We'll divide this by 3. I always get the values I want and then divide them by either half or 3, because if it looks the way that I want, then that means that there's something wrong with it. So divide it by half, and then your chromatic aberration, your glares, your depth of field won't be so dominating that people are laughing at your renders. There's still a lot of fireflies. In fact, I bet I could just get rid of the HDRI altogether and just get some nice environmental lighting and light bouncing. Except for this penetration. I don't like the penetration. I'm not going to let the video end that way. Wow, that actually looks pretty good. That's like Mirror's Edge style light bouncing. I even like how this part looks. And that's because of the fact that there is no ground. So all the light from under this, where it's yellow, is coming up and painting quite a picture. Alright. We'll change this to rendered again, but we'll put the preview to 10 because the computer grinds hard whenever it's rendering. Alright, which one is that? I would say it's this one. We'll just pull that in there, see how that feels. Alright, what if I select this entire edge? And it doesn't matter if the planes are intersecting, I'm not gonna zoom in for a close-up on this. That solves that. So at 10 samples it looks kind of bad. I can play with the seed, which can sometimes get you better results. But look at the bouncing's out of control, so I'll just leave that there. And we'll just put this at 0, full screen it, and that'll end the video. So y'all saw me come in here, grab a whole bunch of random stuff, throw it in the same scene almost, and just build just a start of a world. And by coming in, texturing it, and adding more to it, I could definitely take this to a much higher level. So I'm going to let the video continue rendering on this, and then I'll just stop it and time lapse this last portion for your entertainment, so that way I'll have a nice final result to show. But I am overall pleased with the result. However, maybe we should add something else. I'm trying to think what that could be. Since I actually destroyed one of my scenes, I don't even feel like using Brenda. But, it was my fault. There's another time someone was asking me for a file, and I was like, sure thing. One moment. Deleted all of my stuff. It's like the stupidest thing I ever did. It was when I worked in a call center, and I just wasn't thinking, and just right there deleted all of my work I did up to that whole point of doing 3D, which was like a year in or something. But I didn't care. I just migrated over to 2.5 and was beginning to leave behind the whole 2.4 phase, and it didn't matter. So we'll throw in some more buildings on this thing. Actually extend it to go a little bit further. And if I look at that, it looks a little more complete now that there's not a big hole. But, the scene needs cars. That's what I was originally going to go get. But, there might be some other stuff I could add here. What pieces of a modern kitchen could I use? Okay, let's go into rent asset. We haven't checked this one out. Palm trees. So I built a couple of palm trees one day just to have some assets for use. So let's go ahead and throw those in this file too. The future just can always be more tropical. I know, palm trees kind of weird it up a bit. So we'll make this one smaller. We'll also make this one a moderate size. This one's also far too big. And we'll go back over here. Open garbage can. This is a classic asset. Good to have. Part of the street debris that helps add to a scene. Alright, we'll set the origin to the geometry on this one. And, just add a couple more things. I forgot, I'm going to go get cars. I keep saying that. I keep not coming back with cars. Switches. Could switches play a use? No. Just want to make big old switches. The human body parts, yes, is one of the backups. Air conditioners. Air conditioners are something that are underestimated and not used enough in, large scenes. There's actually a picture I was looking at that was a study on just how useful they could be in a scene. But it showed like all these apartments with them, along with added birds and chromatic aberration. It really helped the render look much more realistic. I don't even think there's a window there. But it's my town. It's also a humongous air conditioner. Maybe there's no heat on, no AC on that floor. Or that floor. Where are those car files? Alright, so I'm just going to copy and paste them from another file. Like I said, my asset system is something that is still a work in progress, so let's see here, I already have trees just dropped in and set to be boxes. Alright, we'll make this a... Here we go. And this is just a simple low poly car I made a while back. There's not even roads over here to be able to even tell. Whole fleet of these cars can be just parked at the pyramid building, because they're in there furthering their reptilian agenda, turning humans into machines. Alright. I don't know what else, such a tongue twister. And you can't even see those other cars. You can't even see that little guy right there. But yes, I just wanted to add in just a couple of other additional objects to just add to the render. And now I'm going to go drink a Red Bull because I'm feeling tired and let this render. Or not. So, I've ran out of memory. What does this mean? That means these objects have to go. It means this little dude, he may have to go. This trash can's gonna have to either get in the scene or get out of it. And now I cross my fingers, or actually, I'm gonna go here and remove this, and this, because I think the image I was referring to might have been 50 megs. But my graphics card is only 1.5, so now I see that to build my vision, I either need to render these things in pieces and then composite them together in the final cut, or just get another graphics card in order to fulfill my vision. But all of the models I build are part of my eventual dream of making these videos. But until I get the skills to, I'll keep making tutorials and, goofing off on YouTube. But one day, I'll have the skills to make my vision, and y'all will see some pretty impressive stuff. So that's it for me. I'll just let this keep rendering. Master Xeon over and out.